Hi, my name is Harry Parker, and I am a student at Tech here in Jacksonville, Florida. And I am doing a tutorial video today on how to replace the differential gasket and service the rear differential on this 2001 Ford Ranger 4x4 Model XLT. Okay, before we get started on this project, the first thing that we're going to talk about is the tools necessary to complete this project. And first and foremost, the most important thing is to address any safety equipment you might use or need. And at a minimum for this project, you definitely should be wearing some sort of eye protection due to the fact that you're going to be getting underneath a dirty vehicle. There's a lot of debris and stuff that can come loose while you're working on the vehicle and cause harm or injury to your eye. So make sure that you're protected. Another thing that you may choose to wear is some gloves. Depending on what kind of tools you'll be using, there's a high chance that you can injure your knuckles or your hands with performing this operation. The first tools that I'm going to point out right here is I got a pry bar, a flat tip screwdriver, a couple different sizes. Older ones are preferred because I'll be using those to pry loose the differential cover once I remove all the bolts. You know, we'll see what's going to work the best, you know, as we continue with that project. The next thing that you're going to need is a breaker bar because the bolts are going to be on, you know, pretty good, and the breaker bar will give you extra leverage in the event that you don't have an impact wrench. Now today I'll be using a combination of both just to show you that you can use the breaker bar, but if you have power assisted tools, they can definitely make the job a lot easier. And then the two things that you're going to need is a socket, which is a 1/2-inch socket. I'm using an impact socket that's going to go along with the impact wrench to take the bolts off, and I have a reducer just to make this combination work. Also, you're going to need 3/8 drive head just to remove and replace the filler plug. All right, so down here is the differential, and this is a 8.8-inch 10-bolt Ford limited slip differential that we'll be replacing and servicing the fluid on today. But to make it a little bit easier, what I'm going to do is I am going to remove the spare tire so that I have better access to the differential. So I will remove this tire, drop it down first, and I will use the wrench equipment that comes with the truck to drop that tire down. So that's going to be located in the cab of your truck. While this tire is down, it'll also be a good time to check the tire and make sure that it's filled and inflated properly, and all my cabling equipment is lubricated and serviced so that we can depend on it when the time comes. Okay, now as you can see with the tire, the spare tire removed, we have full access to the differential. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to remove all 10 of these bolts right here. Okay? And one thing that I want to point out is anytime you're doing a differential service, Most differentials, if they haven't been serviced yet, or the tag hasn't been lost, it'll be here. There's a lot of important information that you can get off of that tag, like what type of differential it is. You know, sometimes the gear ratio, what type of fluid, how big it is. And so on this one right here, it's telling me that it's a 10 bolt and it's an 8.8 inch. So that's all important information when you're going to your local parts store to pick up the required and proper servicing lubricants, gaskets, and limited slip treatment fluids. Okay, just so everybody can see, for instructional purposes, you can, if you do not have an impact wrench, you can just use a regular ratchet and a socket, half-inch socket, to break these loose. Okay, so I'll unloose a couple. And for the remainder, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the impact wrench. Okay, now with all 10 bolts, cover bolts removed, we're going to go ahead and remove the cover now. Now it's important to make sure that you have your drain pan underneath, because once this cover busts loose, the fluid's going to come flying out. So here we go, and there's the fluid. And you can see it draining out right there. And once it drains a little bit more, I'll go ahead and remove the cover so the rest of it can rush out. I'm just leaving the cover on so I don't make a big mess here in my driveway. Okay, now with the cover removed and all the fluid drained, there's a couple things that you want to take note of. Two things. If this isn't your personal vehicle and you don't know the history of it, the color of the fluid will tell a big story on how well this vehicle was maintained. This is our personal vehicle, so it gets maintained regularly. Now, with the cover off and all the fluid drained, we'll keep the drain pan here to make sure that it can continue to catch, any residual residue from the oil that could still be dripping. But an important thing to take note of is you want to put your hand inside the differential, and you want to, there's a little reservoir down in here, and you want to check that. And what you're looking for is you're looking for any metal shavings, that could be caused with gears that may not be aligned properly or not properly lubricated, and you want to inspect for overheating. But the big thing is you definitely want to make sure that you can't feel any metal shavings here or even around on the oil pan once you've drained your oil, because those shavings would indicate they need to check and diagnose some other things. So now that we've inspected for any metal shavings or filings or anything like that, and we didn't discover any, we're just going to go ahead and continue on with the service of this differential. The next step is to go ahead and clean the differential mating surface here, and also we're going to clean the gasket off of the cover itself. So we're going to clean these two surfaces right here to make sure that they're as clean and as perfect as we can get them, so that when we install the new gasket, it's going to seal properly. So there's a couple ways that you can do that. You can use a scraper or putty knife, and you can go ahead and go around and you can scrape it and clean it that way on these surfaces, and that's fairly effective. But what I'm going to choose to use is I am going to use a wire brush attached to a cordless drill, just to make it quicker and easier for myself. Okay, with our differential mating surface and our differential cover mating surfaces clean, all the oil cleaned out of the reservoir and the differential, we're ready to go back together. So the next step is going to be getting the gasket, and for this particular differential, we're going to use Felpro RDS 55341 part number. One thing that I always do is I'll cut my gasket open like this so that I can take the gasket out and make sure that it's the correct gasket, because if you've ever dealt with part stores, a lot of times you'll end up coming home with the wrong part. So this part, in fact, is the correct part, so we're going to go ahead and go along with it. So one of the things that I do to make it a little bit easier for me is I will use just a little bit of this 3M adhesive to attach the gasket to the cover so that it doesn't slip on me while I'm trying to do the install. So we're going to go ahead and just put a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, just to get it to stick. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this get tacky. So I'm going to let it set up for about a minute. And once about a minute's gone by, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach the gasket and let it set up for about another minute, and then go with the reinstall and get ready to add our fluid. Let the adhesive set up for a minute. It'll be good and tacky, and we can get this gasket in place and get it seated down real nice, like so. Go around it, make sure that we're good. All my holes are lined up, and now we'll let it set up for about another minute, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll reinstall it. Okay, now that our gasket has set up with the adhesive and everything's cleaned, we're ready to go ahead and reassemble the cover and get it torqued down. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to put all the bolts back in hand tight. We will use a ratchet to assist us with getting them tightened down, but you're only going to tighten them down hand tight. And you're going to use an alternating pattern with a final torque spec of between 28 to 38 foot-pounds. Now with the differential being basically hand tight with the assistance of the ratchet, we're going to go ahead and do our final torque 2 spec. I set this torque wrench to 33 foot-pounds, and I'm going to continue to use the alternating method to make sure that it gets torqued correctly. And if you hear that right there, that click right there lets me know that I've reached my torque spec. Okay. Okay, now that I've gone all the way around using the alternator method, I'm going to verify that I haven't missed any, and I'm just going to go around the circle and just check them just to make sure. Okay. All right. So now we're ready to fill the differential. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the driver's side front of the differential. Okay, so the drive shaft is right here, looking towards the back or the rear of the vehicle. This is the filler plug right here. It has a 3/8 head that we're going to use to loosen and tighten it and get access so that we can install the lubricant. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that now. Okay, I'm going to try something. Okay, for filming purposes, I've already gone ahead and I've already put 2 quarts in the differential. Now, what the specs call for with this differential is 5.1 pints. So what I did was I went ahead and I got the proper lubricants, which is 80 weight -90. And I bought it in a gallon size. And then I like to keep these old Lucas bottles around because they're similar to what the gear oil traditionally comes in, but I can use them and I can kind of gauge how much fluid I'm putting in my differential. And the other thing that my differential requires is this additive. It's for limited slips, and it's another 4 ounces. I went ahead, I've already added that in the second quart, so all I have to do now is just top the differential off and reinsert the plug, and then we're finished with this project. Okay, now that we're underneath, you can see the bottle right here, and we got the hose going inside the access, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish topping it off. Now the proper level, according to the book specifications, it's 1 inch below that filler hole. So once we get closer to being topped off, I'll show you how to go ahead and check that. Okay, now that we've think that we've achieved our correct level, going by what the manufacturer specs was by adding 5.1 pints of fluid, we're going to go ahead and check it. And to check it, what we're going to do is it needs to be a 1/4 inch below that filler hole. So you can do a couple different things. I have this feeler gauge right here that is used for points, and it's a 1/4 inch. And it has the correct angle, so I'm going to go ahead and use that to check the fluid depth. If you don't have one of these, you could build one out of a piece of wire or a coat hanger. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to check it. and you can see that it has fluid on it. So it is right exactly where we need to be. So this project is near complete. All we have left to do is put back in the filler plug and we are done. So here we go. Okay, now that we've got the drain plug tight, the last and final thing that you want to check is on every differential you have a pressure release valve right here, and it is right here. Okay, and it is also on the driver's side, top of the differential axle housing. And you want to make sure that as the final part of the service that there's no obstructions, that it's not cluttered with any grease or caked with any grease or debris, because that pressure release valve is really important with making sure that it doesn't get too much pressure built up inside the actual differential and cause you to blow seals. So don't forget to check that, and this service is now complete. Okay, everybody, again, my name is Harry Parker. I'm a student at JTech. Thank you for watching this video on how to service a differential on a 2001 Ford Ranger 4-wheel drive.